Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you. Thank you very much for being here with us. And as always, The Lock Shop is brought to you by our wonderful partners at Coolbet. Sign up for an account today. Use the code LOCKSHOP, all one word, and you get a nice little treat from the folks at Coolbet when you sign up with The Lock Shop, where you should go immediately, right, Huss?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, yes, this is the best time of year to take advantage of the introductory offer. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And of course, we've got NFL just around the corner. But today, a very, very cool Coolbet exclusive for us, Dusty. Getting ready for this big game this afternoon between Team Canada and Team USA at the Women's World Hockey Championships.
Yes, for sure. Right now, here's the deal. Marie-Philippe Poulin to score 1+ goals and Canada to win plus 375. If you believe Canada's going to win, you might as well get on this because you know she's going to score the winner, and it's plus 375. So this should be, they're always a great game. It's a ridiculous rivalry. It's coming up in like 50 minutes. So if you're watching on the live stream, you want to hop on that exclusive bet over there with Coolbet, you just have to hop on to the website or mobile site, Coolbet specials, and then you'll see the link right there, and you can hop on it at plus 375. So
game as well is on the board in Canada. Canada's a slight favorite, minus 133. USA plus 109. So plus 375 for a Poulin goal in Canada. I think, well, needless to say, I couldn't bet it fast enough. Looking forward to this game tonight. Both teams are 3-0. Very difficult to judge anything from this tournament until these two teams play each other. And that's going down this afternoon for presumably the first of two matchups. The next one, we assume, will be for the gold medal. But, MPP and a Canada win plus 375. Count me in on that.
A little Barry Horowitz for yourself here, Huss. 4-0 in the CFL last week. 7-1 in your last 8. We went head-to-head last week, and it was not a good head-to-head for Dusty. I ended up going 1-3 last week, but 4-0. Excellent week 12, my man.
Yeah, thanks. It was it all sort of came together, and I joked yesterday on Winnipeg Sports Talk because when we did the picks last week, made the first 3, and then we got down to that Edmonton-Ottawa game. And I took Ottawa and the points on the road, despite the fact that they had just gotten pumped by the Elks at home. And I thought these two teams, the most appropriate way for this home-and-home series to finish would be both teams going 1-1 and both shitting the bed at home and disappointing their home fans. And that's exactly what happened. Ugly performance. It's just bizarre that the Elks can have the wins that they have all on the road and have played the way that they have been in front of their own fans at Commonwealth right now. But anyways, it came through right now, seeing the board well, and now we come to the Labor Day Classic weekend. This is just going to be it's going to be awesome. Probably my favorite weekend of the year, if not the next weekend where the Banjo Bowl's here in Winnipeg. But we've got some great matchups. 3 traditional Labor Day matchups. And the first one, Ottawa and Montreal, with the Red Blacks, dare I say, with a little bit of momentum after getting their second win of the season.
No, I don't think so. But we'll see what ends up happening. I just realized that we're going head-to-head on 3 of these games again. I put the picks in this morning, and I didn't realize it until right now. But yeah, and there's a lot to discuss out west. There's no doubt about that. But let's start out in the east. And once again, if you're watching on the live stream right now, it's all presented to you by our great partners at Coolbet. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You'll get a fantasy football episode later on this evening. We'll pump out a wide receiver preview for you as well. That'll come straight to your Lock Shop feed. So lots going on right now with the Lock Shop, and even more coming here in the near future. But so make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You'll be able to find the Lock Shop. Montreal, Ottawa. This is it. So are you a believer in red black momentum? Is that what this is, Huss? Or do you just like that number being at 5.5?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Although, I mean, I think Arbuckle going in and getting that win is a nice, shot of adrenaline for the team. And listen, the quarterback position is so important. And really, since Masoli's gone down, it has been a big reason why they're in the situation that they are right now, that they find themselves in. So listen, I mean, Arbuckle getting the win and just getting some positive vibes around that team, I think was huge. But here's the thing with Ottawa. Yeah, they've stunk, and yeah, they've lost all these games. They've also found incredible ways to lose games they shouldn't have and lost in many, many close games. And at this point, I've been a guy that's been on Montreal most of the games so far, especially
I'm
with
surprised by this.
The thing about it is I just don't have a lot of faith that the Montreal Alouettes are going to, win by the number that they need to. I mean, Ottawa has seemed to hang in games. And as I said, find ways to lose. I mean, bad plays late in games, but I mean, they have been in these. And I just think that coming out of this win against Edmonton, they will be able to hang with Montreal. And this will be an interesting game in typical CFL fashion going into the fourth quarter. So I just think it's a little bit too much. I mean, if this was 3 or maybe even 4, I might lean towards Montreal. But at just about 6 points, 5.5 at open, it's still 5.5 right now. Give me the underdogs. When in doubt recently, I've been taking the points, and considering the thrilling games we've been having in the Canadian Football League, many of them called by you, I don't think you can go wrong in a situation like this if you're somewhat undecided by taking the points. And we'll see if Ottawa can go 2 in a row. I think they've got a much better chance of doing it on the road, much like the Elks, because we know that team has been ugly at home.
My there's a little hesitation here. The 5.5 is a pretty big chunk for a team like Montreal, but they won 2 in a row, including that win over the Bombers, coming off a bye week, at home coming off that bye week. I think their defense, like we saw in Winnipeg when they picked up that victory, their defense is legit. I like their defense more than I like Ottawa's defense. I like Montreal's offense more than I like Ottawa's offense. So I'd be very surprised if Montreal loses this game at home. And I know, things are crazy and anything can happen in the Canadian Football League, especially out east there. But I think Montreal wins, and I'm going to go with them to cover coming off a bye week, having won 2 in a row and trying to continue some momentum. And they get to do it against arguably the worst team in the Canadian Football League. So I just can't read much into the Elks and Red Blacks in these games that they just played head-to-head together. It's just, they're in the bottom tier of the league. I think everybody else is at least somehow, some way, maybe a tier above them. So I'm going to go with the Alouettes being in a different tier than the Red Blacks and winning that game by at least 6 to cover the 5.5. There we go. Off to Mosaic, where I will be on Sunday to call that first half of that back and back. I'll be in Winnipeg for the Banjo Bowl on the 10th, which should be amazing as well. And we go head-to-head here again. And I'll start with the Riders. Now, I know it's different because it's the BC Lions and they didn't have Nathan Rourke, and obviously the BC Lions without Nathan Rourke are certainly not anywhere close to the BC Lions with Nathan Rourke. Now, O'Connor, who is supposed to be the guy, he gets hurt in that game, so they're rolling with Pipkin, so I don't know if I should read too much into what the Riders are able to go there and do. What I do know is that BC defense got taken to it pretty good by Cody Fajardo. That was a huge game for the Riders offense. Cody Fajardo throwing for over 300 yards. Frankie Hickson steps in for Jamal Morrow, and they don't miss a beat. But that's the offense isn't why I'm taking the Riders plus 3.5. It's still that Riders defense. I love the Riders defense. They've got healthy on the defensive line. I'm not talking about Marino. I'm talking about the guys who can actually make an impact. And then, you look at what they've done with the linebacking core. The only weakness that you'll probably find there is certain parts of their secondary. So I think I'm going to take the Riders plus 3.5 on the strength of their defense at home against the Bombers. I mean, we could very certainly, and I know you will, make a great case for the Bombers minus 3.5 here, but I don't want to overly read into what the Riders offense finally did, because I know it's kind of been stuck in neutral all year. I'm not too sure that's going to change on a regular basis moving forward, but I do think their defense at home in this game, coming off a game where they got some momentum, I think the Riders are going to keep it close. So I'll take the extra hook there on the 3, and I'll take it to 3.5, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, if you look at the Labor Day Classic historically, and the Banjo Bowl for that matter, I mean, you can often throw out the records. Even I recall going with a couple busloads of folks from the showdown, and the Bombers were 7-1. The Riders were 1-7, and we were all pumping our chests out. And They ended up losing that game and losing the Banjo Bowl at home. So anything is possible. However, I really do think that this Bomber team is ready. Listen, they've set the bar so high. Their level of consistency, the professionalism, but they know that this is a huge game, and they have embraced it. And they've really excelled at Mosaic over, well, pretty much since Mosaic opened. First preseason win, first regular season win, first playoff win. And we'll see whether they can get the first Grey Cup win a little bit later on. If this was more than 4, I don't think that I'd have the stones to lay it on the Bombers, because you're right. I don't think this is going to be a game that they absolutely run away. But I really do think that their offense is significantly better, even without Greg Ellingson. And the Bomber defense is going to be up to the challenge. And BC had a couple big losses early in that game last night, and or early in the game last week against Saskatchewan, and I think they took advantage of it. But considering the way the Bombers have played, especially against the better teams in the league, Calgary and BC, I see no reason why they can't go in and win this game by 4 points or more. And huge credit to Buck Pierce. Paul Lapalisse got so much credit when he was here as the offensive coordinator of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Buck sort of filled his role and very quietly has turned into an elite offensive mind that brings different things to the table each and every week. They're going 3 times up against Saskatchewan over the course of this next month. I would not at all be surprised if Buck's been spending long hours finding ways and new wrinkles, especially with Ellingson out, to get the most out of their offense. Nick Dembski had a massive game last week. The former rider
McRae.
Yeah, well, wait, what a catch too by McRae. And that's a guy that maybe wasn't even going to be in the lineup. So the Bombers just seem to have so many weapons. They've got Zach Caleros, who I'm sure will love nothing more than to remind everybody in Saskatchewan who the top dog is in the Canadian Football League right now. So I'm going to lay the points with the Bombers on the road. Wouldn't normally do that in this situation, but we talked about tiers right now. I certainly think Winnipeg's in a different tier than the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I think they remind everybody of that on Sunday afternoon at Mosaic.
It's going to be such a great game. The way that the Riders actually scored some points in BC this past weekend, I was already excited to come call it. I mean, it's going to be sold out. It's going to be amazing. But when I saw them kind of get going offensively against what I still think is a pretty decent defense, really got me excited for this game. I don't know if they can continue on. I don't know if Fajardo can do what he did last week, but I cannot wait. I cannot wait to call this football game. Make sure you're watching on TSN on Sunday. It should be terrific. Hamilton, Toronto. This is bizarro world for me. I've been against the Argos all year. And in fact, in this home, I think you and I have been like almost on the other side of it. Probably 3 of the 4 weeks now, for sure. Possibly 4. I think we were both on the same side of one. But here I am on Toronto again. And I think where this comes from, for the most part, I'm not going to sit here and say I've been sleeping on the Argos, because they're 5-5. So it's nobody ever sleeps on a 5-5 team. But what I am starting to get pretty confident in is that you can't trust the Hamilton Tiger Cats in pretty much any situation. This has been, we're talking back-to-back Grey Cup trips, and this season has completely fallen apart. And I think the part that probably disappoints me the most is their defense. They've surrendered the most points, and I've played an extra game, but their defense compared to their offense right now, both sides of the ball are a little bit of a concern, but I have backed Hamilton a lot this year. I think if you went back and looked at my picks, a lot of the ones I've missed on have been having faith in the Ticats when I shouldn't have. I'm gonna flip the script this week. I'm gonna go with Toronto. I'm gonna buy into McLeod Bethel Thompson for a week, and I'm gonna take the Argos +1.
This is hilarious, I have to admit, because you're right. We were head-to-head last week, and I'm like, hey, I just think the Argos are better. I've been rolling with them, and it helped me out. Now I'm going on the other side. And this is essentially a bet that says the Ticats can't be as bad as we've seen. And listen, they have been the authors of their own demise. The amount of turnovers coming out of the arm of fumbles or picks of Dane Evans has absolutely killed them. But biggest game of the year, best crowd of the year, they're in the Hammer. I think the crowd will certainly play a role in this. And there's a little bit of pride at stake as well. You can't just keep losing to the team just down the highway from you. And it's not like the Toronto Argonauts or the Bombers or the Lions or the Stampeders. These games are eminently winnable right now. And I just think it's time. This is almost a gut play because, as I said, I've been saying a lot of things, and I've been betting on the Argos in these matchups head-to-head against these teams already. But laying only 1 point at home, I think it's a great spot to maybe give the Ticats another chance. And I'll tell you what, if Evans can't get the job done, I wouldn't be surprised if we see both quarterbacks play for Hamilton, to be honest. And, if one guy seems to have it together a little bit more, Steinhauer will roll with them. But this will be a game where this team needs to step up in front of their home fans. They've been embarrassed a couple times by the Argos. I don't think it happens in the Labor Day Classic. I will take the home team. I will lay the 1 point with the Ticats at home to get a win back after losing by a couple TDs last week at BMO.
And then there's the big number of the week. And you don't see a lot of CFL weeks where you're looking at double digits. I mean, it'll happen, but you don't see a lot of it. You get Edmonton here after losing at home. You texted me on that Saturday. You're like, these guys are never going to win at home. I was just like, I'm not even watching right now. It's a tough one. But the Elks plus 12.5 heading down to Calgary, where they're going to be wearing those new alternate uniforms, and Jake Maier is going to be doing his thing again with Bo Levi Mitchell on the sideline. Huss, is this just in this league too big a number to pass up at 12.5?
Well, listen, if this was a Commonwealth, I'd be all over Calgary. But but they're on the road where they're a much better team. Hey, the Elks have shocked. We think about the game in Montreal earlier. Well, really, all three of their wins, came on the road. And for whatever reason, they seem to have a little bit more confidence, or maybe it's just teams are somewhat taking them lightly on home field, knowing that it's a team that, frankly, is in a real rebuild right now. He's destined for the playoffs and going forward. Listen, Chris Jones is going to be ready for this game. And here's another thing. Calgary has also somewhat played down to their level of opponents. I mean, they played great, albeit 0-3 against the Bombers. We saw that crazy game they had against BC where they lost by 1. But then they've also had, some games like against Ottawa where admittedly they only gave up 3 points, but they only scored 17. So Jake Maier is going to have another big opportunity to go. But I think Chris Jones will be ready for that. Listen, Calgary's going to win this game. I wouldn't even be surprised if they win it by double digits. But it's really hard to lay 12.5 points and expect a team to cover against a team that has been very good against the spread away from home, where they're on a historic losing streak dating over 1,050 days. And this is the other thing. Funny things happen at Labor Day. We talked about throwing the records out between the Bombers and the Riders. If you look historically, I think he could do the same thing in this series right now. So even though the Elks are where they're at right now in their rebuild and the way we've seen Calgary play, I think this game has a good chance of being closer than I think what a lot of people think. And given one option or the other, I'm taking the points and hoping that the Elks can keep this thing 12 or less.
Such a tough call because, it's just such a big number at 12.5. I'll be honest. I won't be shocked if Calgary wins this game by 30. I won't be shocked. The Elks have been blown out 3 times. Like, you know what they're capable of when things go poorly. I think the Elks can cover this number if they can score 20 points in this football game, because Calgary's going to score points. They've got Kadeem Carey back. Jake Maier moves the ball. Malik Henry was back last week. Like, they got their full complement of offensive weapons. Well, we've seen what Chris Jones' defenses have done so far this year, and it's not what you would expect from a Chris Jones defense, so I don't see all of a sudden them holding Calgary to 18. The reason that I think the Elks can score 20 points is because Calgary's defense is so banged up, and I'll be monitoring, and you should all be monitoring the injury reports throughout the week as well. They're posted every single day throughout the practice week. But Calgary's defense last week was missing like 6 DBs in that game. And they still gave Winnipeg a pretty good run, but Winnipeg scored points on them, right? Winnipeg took shots deep on them, and it worked. So I do think, you might see what you saw this last week where Kenny Lawler strikes a couple of times and they're able to get some points. So I think Edmonton offensively, they're not going to light it up, but against the defense, and I'm not taking anything away, when Calgary's defense is healthy, it's pretty darn good defense, but they're just simply not healthy right now. They're missing 2 of the 3 linebackers. They're missing their starting safety. They're missing a bunch of guys, missing one of their corners. So their defense is banged up. So I think Edmonton can score some points to cover the 12.5, and that's why I'm going to ride with the Elks. And like Huss mentioned, we wouldn't touch it if they were at home, but they're on the road here, and I think we can ride with that.
Yeah, no, it should be a great finish up. Of course, the Hamilton-Toronto game and Edmonton-Calgary games are on Monday, and you got the Sunday Labor Day Classic. When you guys pick the games you get to, I mean, is it like a draft where you say, okay, I want to do this game? Because I would suggest that the top 2 picks on the schedule both went to you with the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl. Get ready for 2 incredible atmospheres over the next 2 weeks, my friend. It's going to be a treat to be in the building. I think it'll be a treat to call those games.
I was originally picking 2 and 3, moved the 3rd, threw in a 4th rounder, got up to number 1, and took these to I just do all the games in the West, so it's a good place to do CFL games. Like, I get the majority of the games in the West. So I'm a lucky guy this weekend, and then next weekend with the Banjo Bowl. So to me, Banjo Bowl in these 2 games, I mean, for us in the West, the 3 biggest games of the schedule all year. Everybody's fired up to do it. There's going to be 800, 900,000 people watching these games. It's going to be an amazing, amazing time, and hopefully we get some covers for you here in the Lock Shop. I think that's good.
Are you doing Calgary Edmonton too?
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround, buddy. I'm doing that game's supposed to end hopefully by 7. Our flight leaves, not boards. Our flight leaves at 8:20. So we got to go straight from the stadium, straight to the airport, get through traffic coming out of Mosaic, which isn't as bad as IG Field. I love IG Field, but it's a nightmare getting out of there. And then the game's the next afternoon. So I'm basically calling 2 football games in like 18 hours. But they're the best 2 games of the year, so I can't wait. It's going to be really good, really fun.
You and Suits got to use that bike valet that we've got there.
I might have to use the bike valet. Mind you, that's a long bike because you know where we stay. It's like a 25-minute drive without traffic.
You know what? I was on. I took the transit. They've actually got a pretty good rapid transit now out to the stadium that avoids all of Pembina Highway on the way. Although I'm just imagining you in suits, in your suits, getting onto one of those buses with fully lubed up Bomber fans after a big win. What a scene that would be. That would be a live stream that could get 1 million views. I will tell you that. Hey, just quickly on the Bomber game, maybe the one reason that I am a little hesitant about laying the 3.5 is that you're calling the game, because every game you call seems to be some crazy finish down to a point or 2. But I do like the points in this game, and I think both of the defenses are strong, and certainly that's the strength of Saskatchewan's team. I won't put this in with the regular picks, but I think I am going to be touching on the over 44. Weird things happen in these games, defensive touchdowns, special teams. We've seen it before, and I certainly think the Winnipeg offense will score, and I think Cody Fajardo, coming off the game that he had last week, will be able to make something happen too. So if you're looking for another
of the week by 5.5 points too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just thought that number was too low. I think it's probably more like 46 or something by the time the game kicks off. So CFL, buckle up, get those picks in early before those lines move if you like them right now, and look forward to seeing this guy on your tube on both Saturday and Monday, or Sunday and Monday, for 2 of the best games of the year.
Once again, if you're just watching, if you just joined live, Canada-US coming up at noon today. You can still get on that special over at Coolbet right now. Marie-Philippe Poulin to score, Canada to win, plus 375. You can hop on that one right now. Huss, you also have a couple of other things before we wrap up this episode today.
This is sort of a little mini wide world of wagering here on the Lock Shop. I mean, you know what? We put so much and had so much fun betting the golf tournaments every week with the Tour Championship finishing up. By the way, what a finish. Rory coming back from 6 down to take it. That was amazing. I kind of put together, I perused Coolbet options late last night, and I've got a few other wagers for you folks. First of all, on the golf, Corn Ferry Tour Championship is finishing up. Top 25 get tour cards. I was stunned that Min-Woo Lee didn't have his tour card already. And I was looking at his results. Listen, he's 33-1 to win the event. I think he's certainly one of the top talented players in the thing. He's been in all the majors, and he's had really good rounds. He was top 15 at the Masters and was top 25 or so at both the Open Championship and I believe the PGA. So, I'm basically looking at this number right now, knowing how big he's risen to the occasion in the most important events. Well, listen, outside of the majors, if you don't have your tour card, there's no bigger event than the Corn Ferry Championship. So little sprinkle on Min-Woo over at the Corn Ferry. Now, I could not believe this, but shout out to Coolbet, great supporters of curling. And it's August, and there are curling lines up right now. And that's when I get to these picks. Now, you can go to Coolbet. It's got the full lines, a number of the top Canadian teams. The Mike McEwen rinks going for the first time. I see Jennifer Jones is out there, which is interesting because she's going to be in Winnipeg on Thursday. We're doing something with her and the gang on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But from talking to teams like the McEwen rink, Reed Carruthers here, the biggest challenge and the biggest deficit for Canadian teams is the fact that there's no ice during the summer. And that's very different to these European teams. So it doesn't surprise me that the European entries are the favorites in both of these events. But I think they have such a massive, massive advantage with the fact that they've been practicing and playing probably throughout most of the summer. We're going to go with the two favorites, Tirizoni plus 110 on the women's side of things, and Yannick Schwaller plus 185 on the men's side. That's the Martinsville women's event, Martinsville men's event. That's there for you if you do want to get into a little August curling action on the Lock Shop, maybe the definition of the wide world of wagering. And then U.S. Open. Really interesting watching some of the games last night. And I'm going to give you two picks for tomorrow's draw. So if you're listening on the podcast, these are still live. Bianca Andreescu with her win. Listen, I'm really high on Bianca. I think she can make a run at this tournament. She's won it before. She seems to be healthy. She seems to be in shape. She seems to be playing with a lot of confidence. And she's got a tough matchup coming up in the second round. She's only a minus 111 favorite. Very, very close. It's minus 105 on the other side against a woman, Haddad Maia. But I got a lot of confidence that Bianca is going on a bit of a run. So we're going to take her. And then I feel bad about this going against another Canadian. I watched Rebecca Marino's first round match yesterday. She had a really nice win. This is the first time she's ever been in all four majors. So she's sort of graduated to another level on tour. And she's a big favorite in this match tomorrow. But I'm going on the other side. This young girl, Sneager, from, I believe she was from Ukraine, was repping Ukraine yesterday, took out the number 2 seed in the first round in one of her biggest win ever. And you could just feel something special about this girl with a big win right now. And I think she comes with that momentum going in against a very unproven player like Marino and gets that win. So plus 165 on the underdog in that match against Canadian Rebecca Marino. And I actually put Bianca at minus 111 with Sneager at plus 165 and got a parlay in excess of 4-1. So if you do want to touch on the women's, I'm not fully going Benedict Arnold here. I'm supporting Bianca Andreescu, but I do think that there's a good potential for an upset in the Marino matchup, and I'm going to be on the other side at plus 165.
This will not be the last that you see of us today on the Lock Shop. We're going to have a Lock Shop Fantasy Football Extravaganza wide receiver preview a little bit later on tonight, so make sure you swing back around and check for that. Watch for that in your podcast feed. If you have been watching today live on Twitter, make sure you do subscribe to the podcast. Haas, you also got Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up here. What do you got coming up today?
We do. So get this. Speaking of golf, we were just talking golf. This dude, Carlos Zhang, at the Southwood Club Championship last weekend. And Southwood had just hosted the PGA Tour Canada event. Very interesting links course. Difficult this year. He, in his round, got an eagle, a hole-in-one, and an albatross.
That's insane.
I didn't think my buddy Ken Weeb, who had 2 holes in one in the same round, could ever be touched, but I think Carlos may have. So he's jumping on the program. We're going to talk to him about his legendary round and how that was, how big the bar tab was when he got back. Of all the time, he had a hole in one in that. It's the club championship when everyone is there. So he's going to come on. Ken Weeb is also going to come on. Bombing will join me. We'll talk Bombers, Riders, as well as a big win for the Rifles, which he called on the weekend. It should be a great show. Come up at 1 o'clock. If you haven't already, get to YouTube, search Winnipeg Sports Talk, hit that subscribe button. We're there every day, 1 p.m. Central. And then we'll get back in the Lock Shop talking fantasy football before, this is a big night for drafts. Tomorrow, a big night for drafts. So perfect time to get the latest lay of the land on wide receivers. And maybe we're gonna do touch on tight ends as well.
I might touch a few tight ends tonight too. We'll see what happens there.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good time. So another dose of the Lock Shop coming up a little bit later on tonight. Tell your friends about the Lock Shop if they like to play fantasy sports or get in on the sports betting. This is the place to do it, right here with the Lock Shop and our great partners over at CoolBet. Stay cool, bet responsibly, and you sign up for an account today. Use the code LockShop. We'll talk to you later tonight. See you later, buddy.